sort of came on with Dorothy early on. I remember lecturing and tutoring to an extent being quite dry in the engineering department and being very abstract, not really having anything that broke down problem solving into, I guess, its core principles. And so the idea was with Dorothy, we spent a lot of time basically trying to break down what are the big steps that you go through in problem solving and how can students reflect on these from an early point in their engineering development all the way through and use them as the guiding principle throughout their time here at University of Adelaide.
Great.
And onwards, I guess. Yeah.
We just basically said, what was the issues with currently, the communications currently, and it was to do with the students weren't really connecting with the subject, and how can we connect it better, and how can it, it's just communications is such an integral part of engineering, but the students don't realise that, and it's connecting it to problems. As engineers, you do have to solve problems every day, so I thought that was a good way to integrate the two.
I remember at the time, I think we had a couple of meetings sort of trying to address issues in terms of students' interaction with the course, because I guess we were trying to sort of teach them a lot about the engineering method, but there was issues in terms of it wasn't actually relevant to what they would do in reality, so it was sort of a dual function of trying to structure the course around and the way they'd solve problems in real life.
Yes.
And also use that to then sort of channel better ways of solving problems. So it was trying to reflect what they were already doing and then trying to improve on that. So
it's sort of nice to see that the further development in the way that, when we were sort of suggesting ideas for what would be good to have in lectures and tutorials, the other guys in the room have been through what we recommended for them. And they've come through out of our recommendations with their own next level tier of recommendations of what the new level of development is. So I think the thing that I really enjoy about it is that you can see the permanence and the base core ideas of what the problem solving is, but the relevance to, say, technology or information media and the way that people present and educate these days is still relevant. It still sits as the undercore and the principle throughout all of that. So yeah, it's nice to sort of see the relevance stick through, I guess, after 4 years, 5 years kind of time.
Fantastic.
And the sophistication of what they were talking about, like the activities for the classes, was, I think, as Matt said, sort of next level to what we were actually suggesting. So
I think it's good because it's still, it still feels like it's a work in progress, which I think is a really good thing. It's really developed from us just sort of sitting around at the table and throwing ideas together, and it's really come up. And I think it's really good that Dorothy is currently, always constantly nurturing that environment, so it gets better and better.
Yes, fantastic.
I think one of the best things, just as an aside, is that people care. That, like Matt was saying, it can be a bit dry sometimes engineering. It surprised me initially that Dorothy was really sort of pushing this, and it was great. And then, in fact, for us to go through that, and then a new group still pushing that and still caring about it, it's just, it's so encouraging. Very exciting.
It's interesting that it's trying to replace the old formulaic sort of lectures and tutors that we used to have with a new formula. I know that sounds ironic, but it's a better formula and it works. And you can see that people get more engaged, and obviously you get the follow through of people wanting to come through and still make it even better.
Yeah. It's training your brain to think a certain way. I think that's why you hear of engineers being in not just an engineering job, but in so many different aspects of the community. It's because that this way of thinking can be applied to anything that you do.
Yes.
So I think that is so important, and to start in year one or in first year is great as well. So by fourth year, when you do your final year project, then which seems to be like the ultimate thing you do at university, you don't even have to constantly look at ops or whatever. It's just second nature.
I mean, ironically, in systems design, the first thing you're taught to do is build the basic structure and then add the nuanced detail around the outside of it. And I think, as an engineer, definitely having that underpinning of the structural detail of being a problem solver, which is what your job is as an engineer or in finance or in any form of field is. And it's almost like a thinking degree, do you know what I mean? Being able to respond to the surrounds around you, information around you, being able to collate, to relearn, reteach yourself, but to have that core principle that you can always apply it to, and you will always apply it to as you go through your career. It's definitely sort of that fundamental structure that you need to rely on once you enter the workforce.
And I think in terms of how it's actually used and how I sort of would use ops at work, it isn't with a little picture of ops sitting on my desk. I don't ever refer to that. It's more of like a training your brain to think in a certain way. Because when you get sort of to industry, I guess there are a lot of processes already there in terms of things to follow and the way, say if you're working on design, there's all these different stages that you've got to go through. So for one, just being familiar with the process is really important, but also having flexibility within that. I think ops teaches that, the idea that the stages they're not sequential. You sort of jump in and out of them, and that's what you do in a project, because you don't know what you don't know at the start of a project, so you've really got to be adaptive. I think that's what it teaches. So.